consistent with the idea that you don't need to know anything about your job if you're going to be put in the head of an agency or you're working at an agency for that matter. Remember, the Office of Personnel Management, we have read through Wired, staffed by now, and I got nothing wrong with people who don't go to college, but I think that like maybe more than just a semester internship at Neuralink, or I should say a summer internship at Neuralink, should qualify you to be at an agency, at the top of an agency. OPM, they had and you know, listen, lifeguards are important, but I think working as a summer lifeguard not necessarily qualify you for this position in government, because I know we're getting rid of the DEI hires. But what about lifeguards? We need to have lifeguards. That's diverse. Not just people who have qualifications for jobs. The top lawyer at the Office of Personnel Management, HR, self-described raging misogynist with a history of racist comments and insistence on loyalty to Donald Trump. Let's check in with the proposed Secretary of Health and Human Services. Now, a lot of people out there might be on the impression that like, oh, all you need to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services is A, to feel like people should eat healthy food. Great idea. B, a sense that things like measles are not that deadly and vaccines are probably not a good idea. And if you could go back in time, you would get your kids unvaccinated. Mm-hmm. There's more to the job than that, because HHS runs, among other things, Medicare and Medicaid. Now, that constitutes like what? An eighth? I mean, healthcare in and of itself constitutes 1/4 of our GDP.
But of our population, with 61 million on Medicare and 72 million on Medicaid, and then there's 7 million on CHIP, which is the children's health insurance.
So you're talking about a little bit less than half. So maybe let's say like, okay, this is an eighth of our economy. Fully an eighth of our economy, minimum. And that's just those two programs, 3 programs. You would think that you should know some of the basic outlines of it. And now, I don't know if you do, people listening to us, because you're not the nominee for HHS secretary. Just a reminder, Medicare you get at age 65. Medicare is a government-run health insurance program. There are options also within Medicare. One is called Medicare Advantage. It's basically a privatization scheme of Medicare. The government has known that it overbills and that it is subject to all sorts of like, let's just call it hijinks. Like you can lose your coverage, you can lose they'll change the providers around, they'll change what is on their schedule of drugs, et cetera, et cetera. And it's very hard to get out of it once you opt in. Medicaid is for low income people, and up to 400% of the poverty line, if I'm not mistaken, you are eligible through Medicaid expansion, or I should say 133%, of the poverty line. Not all the states, some Republican states haven't expanded that way, but up to 100%. Now, it is block granted. Medicare is actually provided by the federal government. It's a federal insurance. Medicaid is block granted, more or less, to states, and they get to implement it in different ways. But it is, when they deliver it, it is free. Medicare has a small copay and sometimes some deductibles as well. Go ahead. Oh, this is a question, I should say, from John Cassidy, right? Bill Cassidy from Louisiana.
Republicans, again, are looking at ways to potentially reform Medicaid to help, pay for President Trump's priorities, but to improve outcomes.
Pause it. Okay, incidentally, and it's good that he said that first. President Trump's priorities are tax cuts for wealthy people. So we're looking for cuts and improve outcomes, of course. Of course. I mean, of course, we want to improve outcomes, which of course means like, how can we have less people on it? Or how can we save money? Go ahead.
again, are looking at ways to potentially reform Medicaid to help, pay for President Trump's priorities, but to improve outcomes. What thoughts do you have regarding Medicaid reform?
Well, Medicaid is not working for Americans, and it's specifically not working for the target population. Most Americans, like myself, I'm on Medicare Advantage, and I'm very happy with it.
Pause it.
Oh, wow.
Now, first of all, most Americans are not on Medicare Advantage.
Right.
It is a subset of people who are on Medicare. People with Medicare Advantage actually largely are unhappy with Medicare Advantage. But when you're asked about Medicaid and your response is, I'm on Medicare Advantage, is like, I guess, like, how did you find Grapes of Wrath, Sam, as a book, now that you're giving us a book report? Well, I'll tell you something. Fahrenheit 451, that's a great book.
Right. So he's touting essentially that he's on private health insurance.
He's buying time because he didn't even
think about it.
Somehow anticipate that this most basic question.
He's got to read in between T cycles. Let's go, buddy.
Go ahead.
Most Americans, like myself, I'm on Medicare Advantage, and I'm very happy with it. Most people who are on Medicaid are not happy. The premiums are too high. The deductibles are too high.
Oh, pause it for a second. Wait a second. The premiums are too high on Medicaid. Is that why they don't like it? And the deductibles are too high. Bradley, can you Google what is the average Medicaid premium? That's like what you pay for your insurance. What is the average Medicaid premium? Because this must be probably too high. What is it, Bradley? Could you tell me?
Generally considered to be near zero.
Near zero. That's odd because, of course, Medicaid is a program for low-income people and they pay zero premiums. What is the average Medicaid deductible? I probably should have asked this before the show. Let's see.
Typically very low or even no deductible.
Oh, so it's almost zero. That's interesting. Well, maybe Bobby is familiar, RFK Jr. is familiar with a different type of Medicaid. Or maybe he's just misspeaking. Let's hold that up here. Maybe he's just misspeaking. We'll keep that right on the side. Go ahead.
Are not happy. The premiums are too high. The deductibles are too high. The networks are narrow. The best doctors will not accept it in the best hospitals. And particularly, Medicaid was only designed for a target population, the poorest Americans. It's now been dramatically expanded. And the irony of the expansion is that the poorest Americans are now being robbed. Their services have dramatically decreased, even though we've increased the price of Medicare by 60% over the last 4 years.
All right, pause it. Now, I'm going to assume he got Medicare wrong when he said he increased, because he's conflating Medicaid and Medicare, which, to be fair, there's a lot of people in junior high who do that. And even I know college students who will conflate Medicare and Medicaid because they're not the nominee for HHS to run the whole system. By dramatically increasing it, now if you're at 133% of poverty, you can get it. Also, it was increased through the ACA over the past 10 years because the states, because of the Supreme Court, were able to opt in. And I think we're at 46 states or 43 states now have expanded Medicaid. The idea that this means that low-income people are being robbed of their health insurance is a function of states that have made it more restrictive and us just not wanting to pay more. To cover people, you got to pay more.
Right.
Now, we've also had savings because a lot of these people now are actually getting some type of care instead of waiting until whatever it is, their toe infection gets them into the ER, and then we all have to pay it within our health insurance rates, or they have untreatable cancer, or whatever it is.
Is he conflating the expansion of Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act with an increase in cost? Is that what he's attempting to do?
He could be also talking about COVID costs that were associated. Now, COVID wasn't real, or to the extent that it was,
a Chinese bioweapon.
Well, or to the extent that it just happened to be not targeted towards Chinese people and Ashkenazi Jews.
Obviously.
It was obviously just, sort of a bit of a scam, an authoritarian thing. All right. Is that all that we have from that? Okay. Let's play a second clip. Matt, remember what that second clip was? Because I want to give RFK Jr., because I've always considered him to be a very smart guy and well-read. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe when he was talking about all this expansion that people don't like the premiums and the deductibles, he was talking about the ACA, which is the Affordable Care Act, which actually uses private health insurance and has exchanges. Now, we know premiums support was actually expanded. I think it was in the IRA or the it certainly was under the American Rescue Act. And we've had we just went through 24 million Americans signed up through the ACA. It is a suboptimal way of people getting health insurance, far too expensive. We should have a single payer system. But maybe that's what he was talking about. Let's play this clip. He is being asked by, who was it? The senator?
Ben Ray Lujan of
Ben Ray
Mexico.
Lujan. Okay, let's hear the question, and then we'll play Kennedy's answer on Medicaid. Good.
Okay. Recent polls have shown a fifth of Americans can't locate the U.S. on a world map. Why do you think this is?
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should.
No, okay, that was the wrong clip. That's not Bobby Kennedy.
Sorry, I mean
that's not. That was in the same bucket of stuff. But no, I want to hear from Senator Ben Ray Lujan, because I'm trying to give Kennedy the benefit of the doubt that when a Republican senator asked him about Medicaid, Kennedy said, oh, people don't like it because the premiums are too high and the deductibles are too high. And everybody, I mean, the premiums and the deductibles average around $0 for Medicaid. Now, yes, there are narrow providers, and we can fix that. We can say, you want your doctor's license, guess what? 20% of your billing needs to be Medicaid. That's the way you comply. We could do that. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's see how he answers this question this time and see if he gets it right. This is the next.
Yes or no, do you believe that Medicaid is a critical program?
I believe that Medicaid is a critical program, but that it's not working as well as it ought to be. And President Trump has asked me to make it work better, that most Americans are not happy with it, that the premiums are too high, the deductibles are too high, and everybody's getting sicker. Too much money is going to the insurance industry.
Pause it. Okay, now wait a second. This is the second time he's asked this question about Medicaid. Again, he says premiums are too high, deductibles are too high. They're about at zero. Too much money's going to the insurance companies with Medicaid. It is a government-run insurance company.
Yep.
Essentially. A program.
After he bragged about having Medicare Advantage earlier on in the questioning.
And so Trump is tasked him with improving it. Now, maybe this is all about managing expectations, because then Kennedy can come back to Trump and go, guess what I did? I got rid of the premiums and the deductibles.
Wow.
How do you in the world vote for a guy, confirm a guy who doesn't know the most basic thing about Medicaid? The most basic thing about Medicaid. Honestly, if I ask my 19-year-old daughter, difference between Medicare and Medicaid, Medicaid is free. It is for low-income people. She can't tell me about narrow provider corridors. She can't tell me about what the benefits are on associated there. She can't tell me about folks who are on both Medicaid and Medicare simultaneously. You're 65. She may not know that 2/3 of people, of elderly people in nursing homes are on Medicaid, but she knows. And there's some osmosis. It's not like she knows a little more than typical. But she knows you don't pay.
I mean, you learn this in like high school, or if not in like a government 101 class in college. But this is what happens when they're nominating a guy who, I really do think has lost his mind to a certain degree and is on like a real ego trip. But he's a very wealthy person who has never known healthcare to be a financial struggle and has made health into this bespoke, libertarian, individualized, pick and choose kind of a consumer choice. And we talked about this yesterday when we were covering some of the other parts of his hearing, his first hearing. It's exploiting people's anxiety about not being able to afford their health care and making it about like these diversionary tactics, like
leading
peptides.
them away from the solutions.
I was going back to like some of his other tweets here where he's saying that the problem is that the FDA has a war on public health, suppressing psychedelics, peptides, stem cells. I mean, back to the Bush administration, we could talk about that, but raw milk. Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, two things made by big pharma. But you see how he envisions health here. It's what his homeopathic doctor provides to him at his house that he pays probably $10K a month for, injecting the peptides and the tea and doing pull-ups. If you are somebody who is not in the 1%, your lifestyle is not going to be able to match RFK's when it comes to health. He's diverting energy that should be going towards decommodifying our healthcare to get people to buy supplements.
If you extend what you've just said about him, his position on vaccinations makes total sense because he does not believe in public health policy. He does not believe in the concept of public health. Because yes, invariably, like any medication that exists from, a consumer pain reliever to anything else, it is not 100% safe. There are circumstances where anything is going to be problematic. And there's some stuff where it's like, it's just a function of who you are. But the idea about vaccinations, and the reason why we do have an extrajudiciary vaccination court to pay out compensation for people that are injured by vaccinations, is that as a public health matter, the public is going to be more safe. Now, understand, with vaccination, even if there are some people who are subject to adverse effects by vaccinations. And this is true with any medical procedure. And understand that this doesn't just happen on a public level, it happens on a private level too. When your health insurance says, oh yeah, dude, we got that bill for the dental work you got, or if you got dental insurance, or we got that bill from your medical provider. We don't cover all this, or we don't cover any of it. And you're like, why? It's because they just are like, we don't think it's medically necessary, based upon, incidentally, a much more limited data set than we would get from national vaccine programs, or from, let's say, even Medicare on these things. And they make that determination. They're doing sort of like a reverse public health thing. They're just doing it they're using the same sort of like algorithm, but they're just basically doing it in terms of profit. But public health is looking across the public and saying, what procedures are we going to support? What procedures are we going to mandate to protect public health? He doesn't believe in that because he does see health is fundamentally an individual thing. He doesn't have a recognition of public health. And that is very difficult to reconcile when you are going to be in charge of the U.S. government's health and human services.
Yeah, and this is why he is not distinct at this point from the Republican Party or their movement. He's like the avatar for the crunchy hippie that didn't, maybe had some like free love viewpoints back in the day and some environmentalism, but ended up becoming a paranoid libertarian. And that's what he represents. That's a part of the Trump movement. It's true. But it's also just as dangerous as the rest of it.
Meg MCA, it's not at all reassuring to know that I, a retail pharmacy technician, know more about Medicare and Medicaid than the HHS nominee. If you're like working, let's say, in a rural area as a pharmacist and a Medicaid payment thing goes down for more than a couple of days, guess what? You're out of business. I mean, literally. Mm-hmm. Jody from Chicago. I'm on Medicaid at the moment, 5 stars. Blue Cross Blue Shield left me with a bill of $1,500 a month for one medication. Medicaid pays for it all. No questions asked. In fact, the Medicaid I use is just for Cook County, Illinois patients and gives you money on a Visa card when you get vaccinated or your annual. Because you encourage them to get vaccinated. You encourage them to get an annual, and you're going to save money down the road because you're going to catch stuff early. It's like getting your oil changed. Cost you a little bit up front, saves you when you need to rebuild your engine. I mean, anybody I've known on Medicaid, the biggest issue is finding people who will take it, because that can be tricky. In New York, it may be a little bit easier than in some areas, but they're like, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. So I don't know. Do we have public polling on Medicaid? Is he wrong about that too?
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
But he's definitely wrong about he's definitely wrong about the premiums. Mm-hmm. Oh, large majorities. This is from Kaiser Foundation polling, KKKF. I don't know what that is. Public holds favorable view of Medicaid. The January 2025 KFF health tracking poll found 3/4 of the public say they have either a very favorable or somewhat favorable view of the program. Well, I wonder, this is just general population. I wonder what it says about people who are on it. Generally, public is in favor of it. It's amazing. He doesn't know. He just doesn't know any of this stuff. It's like literally somebody said, all you need to know is that you didn't do anything in Samoa.
David Griscom pointed out, Libs of TikTok tweeted, I ask, and this is quoting RFK, I ask any Democrats who are chuckling now, do you think all that money, $900 billion that we're sending to Medicaid every year has made Americans healthy? Do we think it's working for anybody? Griscom says, yes, it was very helpful that my family was eligible for Medicaid and was able to go to the doctor as a kid, you fucking moron.
Right. I saw he put that out there. We just gave you the numbers of like how many people. So 72 million for Medicaid, and then 7 million for CHIPS, the child's health version of that.
We got to look into like what Medicaid, but I mean, I love LA. Sam, I was on Medi-Cal. I had cancer a few years ago, covered all my hospital time, chemo, radiation, docs, visits, and medics, 100%.
Yep.
Zoe from Wisconsin, as I'm a pharmacist. When Medicaid went down the other day, we were getting claims for $3,000 minimum for PTS taking a biologic medication, for patients taking biologic medication for asthma until we were able to re-enter. This is medication that allows people, usually kids or elderly, to live a normal life with asthma. Business needs to get out of healthcare. Molly Gray Jedi. I had a child in 2016. It was $65,000. Medicaid paid the whole thing. I've never been more thankful that the government made sure I didn't die when they cut me open to save my baby's life. Scary Mountain Wizard. 20 years ago, I had Medicaid for chemotherapy. I accidentally got sent a bill. It was over $200,000. That was 100% covered by Medicaid. Bobby is a moron.
Extremely dangerous too. I mean, people are going to suffer greatly because of this idiot, because I think he's going to get through. That, or whichever idiot takes this place.
I don't know. We'll see what Bill Cassidy does. Although I
did
said
they follow
that
up on that? Did Luan follow up on that question? Like, wait a second. What did you say about Medicaid? Did anybody follow up on that?
Yeah, hit him with it.
I mean, seriously? Is this a deep government secret that we want to keep under wraps? You know, it very well may be. Yeah. It very well may be. Because I will tell you what happens, and I've talked to a lot of people about this over the years, and particularly like during COVID. There are people who really resent. Why is that person in line at the doctor's office? They just show their Medicaid card, and they don't pay anything. And invariably, the way that our press and our politicians have set this up, all it does is breed resentment. See if there's a follow-up question. We put that back up and just see where let it run after he says that.
Money is going to the
Kennedy?
insurance industry.
I have a series of yes or no questions. They're pretty simple. Because you heard we're not going to get a second round of questions, I ask for your indulgence to be able to get through them yes or no. In New Mexico, as you know, Medicaid is often measured state by state.
Right.
It might surprise
you know, like,
Yeah.
you should listen to what the answers are.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.